Are you scared when you hear that retail sales of silver and gold bullion are collapsing? We're hearing it from everywhere. Other YouTube content creators. I talked with CoinShop Chris. I also talked with several other CoinShop owners throughout the country, and I'm hearing the same thing from everyone. Sales have fallen off a cliff. But what does that mean for you as a silver and gold investor? We're going to look at why this is happening, but more importantly, what does it mean? Should you be concerned? And I think there's a couple key factors that nobody else is talking about that we need to consider when we put together the entire context of what's going on right now here in the United States with retail silver and gold sales. The first reason why the demand for silver is plummeting, we'll call that the rebound effect, or the gravity effect, if you will. Remember just 8 short weeks ago, we had a big banking crisis going on. Remember? Banks were failing. There was financial concern. We won't call it panic, but concern. And people were flocking to silver and gold. Most every bullion retailer was bragging about how they'd added more customers during like a 6-week period than they'd added during the 6 previous years. Demand skyrocketed. And what happens after something shoots straight up? Eventually it needs to correct a little bit. And that's one of the big reasons why we're seeing this lull in demand for physical silver and gold for that matter. Remember when you were a kid, you're out in the backyard, you throw a baseball up into the air. The ball goes up, 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 but eventually it starts to come back down. And that's exactly what we're seeing with demand for silver in particular. It was just 8 short weeks ago that we had a banking crisis, a panic of sorts here in the United States. People were concerned and people flocked to silver. We saw demand, much like that baseball, shoot into the air. Many of the bullion retailers were bragging that over a 6-week period, they'd added as many customers as they'd added in the previous 6 years. Look, guys, anything that shoots up that fast, that high, is going to correct. And that's just one of the factors right now affecting the silver demand. Something very interesting that I'm hearing is that the big buyers of silver and gold are still buying. Now look, they're not buying at the pace that we saw 8-9 weeks ago, but they're still buying at a pretty normal pace. The big slowdown that we've seen is with the smaller buyers, the person who may buy 1 to 10 to 20 ounces of silver at a time. And that's not unusual. That side of the market tends to go up and down much more frequently. And when price pulls back a bit, like it has lately, for some reason, people don't like to buy silver when it's on sale. We'll cover the bigger picture factors about the silver price at the end of the video, and it is reason to be optimistic. But when we back up to the retail investors, we can't ignore economic slowdown as a very plausible reason why the small retail investors are pulling back on their purchases of physical silver. The fact of the matter is Americans have more credit card debt than any other time in history, and their savings are gone. So we probably have a lot of the small retail investors who don't have money to buy silver, or even worse, maybe needing to cash in silver just to live, just to buy things like fuel and food, just the basic living necessities. We got one more negative to cover, and then we're moving over to positive territory. That's where we like to live. Hey, summertime's great, right? Lots of fun things to do. You know, yesterday, I got to put up a slip and slide for my daughters and inflate 35 water balloons. Not that I was counting, but nonetheless, the fact of the matter is for silver and gold, retail purchases, summer is always slow. Anyone in the business, they tell me they call it the summer doldrums. Sales always drop off in June and July of physical metal. So that's another factor that may be contributing to one degree or another to this collapse, quote unquote, that we've seen in demand for physical silver and gold from retail investors in the United States. Remember those two key points. We like to think we're so important, but we have to realize retail investor demand for silver, while it's an important component of the demand picture, it's just one small chunk of the total pie. We've got things like industrial demand and many more that make up a bigger section of overall demand for silver. And we know the story when it comes to demand from industry, from the solar panel industry, from the electric car industry. That is only growing and growing, but it gets even more optimistic when we consider that we're just looking at demand, let's say, in the United States, right? The whole world exists beyond our borders. And the other countries, let's look at China, let's look at Russia, let's look at the Middle East. We don't know what investor demand is doing in those countries. Remember, last year alone, India imported over 300 million ounces of silver. So when we look at the broad, big picture, sure, retail demand for silver in the United States being down, that's not a good thing. It's not good for the local coin shop owners, right? That's a low margin, risky business to be in to begin with. But that's just a tiny slice of the overall demand pie. And there's a great big world beyond our borders. We don't really realize that, I think, as USA-centric people, but other parts of the world have much greater appreciation for precious metals and will continue to buy. Hey, let me know your thoughts below. And let me know if you're from a different part of the world. Are you seeing demand for silver and gold drop off a cliff? I think the big picture remains rather optimistic. And at some point, this retail demand picture will improve anyway. Thanks for joining me here in the basement. Go watch a live stream.